didn't, so they made me come again yesterday. So sorry about that. Okay, we will uh, so the last time I was talking to you about cosmologies, and I was talking to you about how Indian cosmology is different from the Greek cosmology. And I was trying to tell you that if you look at uh, the Greeks basically tried to, what should I say? They tried to understand the world in different ways. And if you look at the different ways in which they tried to understand the world, you will see that the Greeks basically uh, also had some kind of a cosmological understanding of the universe. Uh, the Greek civilization is something which is unparalleled in the Western world, and it is also something which is not unparalleled because you had great civilizations like the Indian civilization and the Egyptian civilizations, ancient civilizations, which are equally, what should I say? These were equally um, great. In fact, maybe the ancient Indian civilization was greater than the Greek civilization. But let's not get into comparisons right now. Uh, if you look at the fact that the Greek civilization has had many different phases, you will understand that civilization much better. If you look at documented history will tell you that uh, the Greek civilization started perhaps with the Milesians. Uh, the Milesians were those who came from the polis, Polis, polis called Miletus, and it was followed by the Eleatic period, which is when people from Alia, we, we talk about people like Parmenides and Zeno. And then we talk about the Athenians, and finally we talk about the Hellenistic phase. Uh, the Hellenistic phase is something that shows the Greek civilization going into decline rather than uh, being uh, illuminated as the other phases were. But before that, I would like to give you a clarification. The clarification is that if you look at the whole idea of the polis, POLIS, it has been translated into English as a city state. Now, this is a very bad translation. You should not use this translation at all. You should not use this translation simply because of the fact that this translation does great disservice. It does great disservice to the Greeks because when we talk about the city state, we have a certain picture in our mind. Now, let me invoke an argument from structuralism. Structuralism and structuralists talk about language and how language generates images in the mind. So, if I say city, okay, now you'll think of something like Hyderabad. And Hyderabad has become a global city. And you'll see that it has these, apart from the bad traffic, which you can't help because there are so many people. But apart from that, it has wide roads. It has an MMTS suburban railway system. It has a metro. It has a city bus transport system. More importantly, it is big. 1 crore people live in Hyderabad, and it is the fourth biggest city in terms of the area that it has in the country. It's the fourth biggest. In terms of population, it keeps vacillating between 6 and 7. So you have this global city here. I call it a global city because its economy is integrated to the global economy. And when we are talking about integration of something to the global economy, then we are basically saying, that all the big companies are here in Hyderabad. All the big IT companies are here. We have Google. Google's second biggest office in the world is in Hyderabad. Uh, we have Facebook, and apart from Facebook, we have Oracle, we have IBM, we have Qualcomm. Qualcomm virtually has a monopoly over uh, technology for cellular telephony. They are in Hyderabad. Hyundai has its R&D center in Hyderabad. So we have this idea of this huge city, big companies, multinational companies being here, and all the areas are contiguous, which means they are all connected to each other. So we have this idea of the city. Now, if you look at the idea of the state, immediately we think in terms of organs of government, we think of the legislature, we think of the executive, we think of the judiciary, and apart from that, we also think of the state as something that is contributing to the good of the people. It is supposed to be something that is taking care of the people. So right now we are in the middle of a pandemic, and while we are in the middle of this pandemic, what we are seeing is that we want the state to intervene. We want the state to ensure that enough beds are provided to people who need treatment, enough oxygen cylinders and enough oxygen supply is there uh, for people who basically require oxygen. So we're looking at all these things. So we expect these things from the state. And if somebody is disadvantaged because of the fact that there are calamities, you expect the state to intervene. So, for example, there is this thing called Raitu Bandhu in Telangana, which is being promoted by the TRS government. So you expect schemes which will benefit different sections of populations. So what you have to remember is that words don't carry just one meaning. Words carry an entire structure of meanings. So the moment I say state, it's not one meaning you get. You get an entire structure of different uh, meanings. And I'm sorry, you will also see that uh, the same is true when we talk about any of the, sorry about that again, uh, when we look at any of the uh, words that we use, when we use words, these words basically have, what should I say? They don't have one meaning. They have an entire structure of meanings. So when you say a city state perhaps is a modern phenomenon. I told you that if you divide European history into its three periods, the first period is the ancient period that lasted almost till the 5th century CE. And from then on till about the 16th century CE, you have the medieval period. And apart from that, you basically also have, what should I say? You have this uh, you have this whole idea of uh, you know uh, what was I saying? I got distracted. Somebody, because the screen is moving, I got distracted. Somebody tell me what I was saying. What was I talking about? I was talking about the city state, and I was talking about the multiplicity of meanings that one word carries. Okay, so let's go back to the polis. And if we go back to the polis, what you will find in the polis is that the polis is not a city state. A city state is a modern phenomenon. Yeah, I was talking about periodization of history. Uh, the periodization of history is uh, till the 16th century, it's the medieval period. From then on, it's the modern period. Some people will tell you that in the 20th century, there was postmodern, and the postmodern period began. The postmodern thing is not a period, it is a phenomenon that lasted for a while, and it doesn't exist with any strength anymore. But we'll talk about postmodernism in the second semester, not now. That is where it comes in. Now, what you should remember is the fact that if you are looking at the city-state as such. The polis is not a city-state. Because if you look at the organization of the polis had at the center of it a small mound or a hillock or a hill on which the presiding deity of that polis was built. And this was called the Acropolis, Acropolis. This was called the Acropolis. And if you put the Acropolis in the center, for instance, if you put the Acropolis in the center, then you'll see that at some distance, there are different villages surrounding the Acropolis. And there is a distance between the Acropolis and the village, and there is a distance between one village and another village, despite the fact that they belong to the same polis. It will become more clearer to you when I talk about Aristotle. But for now, please remember that city-state is a very bad translation of the polis. So you should be calling the polis in English as well when you talk about it. And the plural of polis is Poliis. It's not pronounced police, it's pronounced police. Greek pronunciations are very funny. Police is what it is. In fact, what you have to remember is that polis is the root of the word politics. And once the Roman civilization came into being, you find that the word polis, politics, words rather, not one word, sorry, words, polis, politics, then political, all these disappear. They disappear. You know, good scholars like G.J.A. Pocock wrote a book called Political Thought in the Middle Ages, as did Otto Gierke, Political Thought in the Middle Ages. Now, if you read those books, which have this particular title, you will see that nowhere, absolutely nowhere, is there a, what should I say? Nowhere is there a mention of anything political. Yet they have titled it as political. You read A.S. Altaker, B.A. Salator. What do they write? State and government in ancient India. There was no state in ancient India. There was no government as we know in ancient India. Ancient India had Janapadas, Mahajanapadas, Rajas. So you see, these are all misleading. And we have to steer clear of these misleading translations because a translation, as I repeatedly keep saying, is an extremely uh, uh, it is an extremely difficult exercise. It's a difficult exercise because the translator is supposed to understand two languages in a very, very good manner. Two languages meaning if you're translating something from Greek into English, then you need to have mastery over the Greek language. You need to have mastery over the English language. Otherwise, you will realize that there is no, what should I say? Otherwise, there is bad translation. So you need scholars, linguistic scholars, who know not only the language, but they know the syntax, which is grammar. People who know the, what should I say, semantics, which are meanings, and semiotics, which are significations of certain things. All these things are required. Unfortunately, there are very, very few people who have been able to translate from Greek into English. Fortunately, there have been a few people who have been able to do this particular job pretty well. The best of the lot is Ernest Barker, Earnest, Ernest, Barker, Barker, and Gompers, Gomperz. These people have been able to give us very good translations. They've been able to give us excellent translations of the Greek period. And you can also add the name of F.D.H. Kitto, 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 who also gives us a very good introduction about how translations have been misleading in the Greek period. Anyway, Now, having cleared the fact that you should not call the Greek provinces city-states, you should call them polis, and that is the root of politics. You have to now remember that there are different periods in Greek history. Like I told you, the first period that is completely uh, luminous, shining, is the Milesian period. The second period is the Eleatic period. The third period, the greatest period in ancient Greece, the Athenian period, and then regrettably the bad period, which is the Hellenistic period in ancient Greece. Now let's start talking about the Milesian School. The Milesian School comprises of three thinkers: Thales, Thales. In Greek, the es is always pronounced as is. So it is Socrates. Similarly, it is Thales, Thales, not Thales, Thales. Anaximander and Anaximenes. These are the three people who constitute the Milesian School. What is the Milesian School? The Milesian School is called the Milesian School because these people were from the province of Miletus, Miletus, Miletus. These people were from there. But you must remember that these people were not all contemporaries. Thales is the oldest, Anaximander is the next oldest, and after that you have Anaximenes, who's in the Milesian School. The Milesian School is also sometimes called the Ionian School, Ionian. It's called the Ionian School because of the fact that it was somewhere near the province of Miletus was near the Ionian Sea. And that is the reason why some people call it Ionian School. So if you get to see Ionian School, it is the same as the Milesian School. Now, we should try and understand some of the important developments that happened in the Milesian School. If you actually look at the Milesians, especially Anaximander, he was a brilliant man. In fact, modern science, including Newtonian physics, has something to do with the with not the with Anaximander. How and why I will get into it as I start discussing the Milesian school. But I'm just giving you a heads up about why we are talking about these people. We are talking about these people because the agendas they set are agendas that are still followed. These agendas are still followed in the modern period. In fact, the modern period gets inaugurated with the Renaissance. The Renaissance is Latin. If you look at it in English, it is Renaissance, Renaissance, Renaissance. Nascent is something that is just being born. So renascent is rebirth. Rebirth of what? It is the rebirth of the classical knowledge of the Greek antiquity and to a certain extent the Romans as well. So you must remember that these people actually, when they look at, when we look at uh, the Greek period, we have to understand that a number of things that became concerns of the modern period in Europe actually had their birth in the Greek period. And I told you the other day, despite the fact that we have had a great civilization, unfortunately, due to things such as colonialism, our knowledge systems have got broken. And therefore, the knowledge systems of India, of Egypt, the Mayan knowledge systems, the Zoke knowledge systems are no longer applicable. What we have today is knowledge from the West. That is the relevant knowledge, whether we like it or not. That is the relevant knowledge. And that knowledge is something that came to us in the modern period when people started re-examining what the Greeks had done. So we have to pay homage to the Greeks because a number of things that we know today in mathematics, in philosophy, in science, all these things, even social sciences, all these things have had their birth in ancient Greece. Now, when I meet you tomorrow, I will start with the Milesian School, and we shall proceed further. We should look at the Milesians, the differences among the Milesians, and the differences with Parmenides and Zeno of the Eleatic school. So thank you very much. I will see you. Can we have, no, I don't want to ask you to come on a Sunday. Ideally, I would like you to come on a Sunday, but it's okay. I'll see you on Monday. On Monday, we'll start the Milesian School. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, we'll meet on Monday again. Thank you. Thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Yashwant.